Hello there, it's time for another basic science lesson, and today we'll be looking at the topic the human skeletal system. Now the objectives of this lesson is to help learners to define skeleton and skeletal system, state the parts of the skeleton, state the two major types of skeletal system, describe the two main parts of the human skeletal system, state the functions of the human skeletal system, define joints, and describe the parts of the joints. Now moving along, functions starts with the human skeleton. Now the skeleton or skeletal system of an organism is the main frame of the organism. In another way, the skeleton is a bony structure which serves as the main frame of that organism that gives rigidity and support to organisms. Now the skeleton or skeletal system is made up of three skeletal materials, namely bones, cartilage, and chitin. So as you have here, we have a picture of the human skeleton, which is made up of bones, cartilage, chitin, ligaments. Now we'll continue with the bones and its types. Now the adult human skeleton is made up of 206 bones. Bones are made of connective tissue reinforced with calcium and specialized bone cells. Most bones also contain bone marrow where blood cells are made. Now these bones can be classified based on their shape. There are 4 different types of bones in the human body. Number 1, we have the long bone, which has a long thin shape. Examples include the bones of the arms and legs, excluding the wrist, ankles, and kneecap. Now as you see in this picture here, you can see that these are long bones right here. We have the humerus, we have the radius and ulna, and for the legs we have the femur, we have the tibia, and the fibula. These are all examples of long bones. Number 2, we have short bones. It has a squat and cubed shape. Examples include the bones that make up the wrist and the ankles, just as you see right here. The green colored bones here, which are found in the wrist and the ankles, are the short bones. Number 3, we have the flat bone, which has a flattened broad surface. Examples include the ribs, shoulder blades, breastbone, and the skull bone. So you can see right here, the purple color bones are the flat bones. Examples, we have the sternum, we have the clavicle and the scapula, and we have the scapula, we have the ribs, as you can see right here, the rib bones, and the bones of the skull, which makes up the flat bones. Number 4, we have the irregular bones, which have a shape that does not conform to the above 3 types. Examples include the bones of the spine or the vertebrae. So you can see these are all the irregular bones. The bones of the spine or the vertebrae make up the irregular bone. An example here, we have the thoracic vertebrae, we have the lumbar, the cervical, and so on and so forth. Now moving on, we'll be looking at the axial and appendicular skeleton. Now the human skeletal system is divided into the axial skeleton, which consists of the skull, vertebral column, and rib cage, or these two are called the thorax. And the appendicular skeleton, which consists of the shoulders, limbs, limb bone, the pectoral girdle, and the pelvic girdle. They are the adjoining parts. They are the ones that join to the axial skeleton. The axial skeleton is made up of 80 bones, while the appendicular skeleton is made up of 126 bones. Now as you can see here, you can see that the pink colored bones are the axial skeleton, which is the framework of the skeleton, while the blue colored bones make up the appendicular skeleton. These are the appendages or the adjoining parts. As you can see right here, you have the skull, you have the vertebrae, and the rib cage. So these all make up what we call the axial skeleton. Now the appendicular skeleton are the adjoining parts, which we have the arms and the legs. As you can see right here, the arm bone, which is the clavicle, is joined to the scapula, where the humerus is attached to it. Then we have the ulna and the radius. Then we have the carpals and the carpals, which are the finger bones. Now similarly, the other appendage or the leg bones are attached to the pelvic girdle, while the arm bones are attached to the pectoral girdle right here. So now from the pectoral girdle, we have the bone of the femur attaching directly to the pelvic girdle right here. Then we have the patella or the kneecap. Then we have the tibia and the fibula. Then we have the tarsals, which are the leg bones. Now moving on, what are the functions of the human skeleton? The human skeleton serves 6 major functions. It gives support to the body. It aids in the movement of the organism. It helps us move. It protects the internal organ. Not only that, it helps in the production of blood cells, storage of ions, and endocrine regulation. Just as you can see right here, the bones or the skeleton supports the body. It facilitates movement, stores and releases minerals, produces blood cells, stores and releases fat, and protects internal organs, just as the skull right here protects the brain, and we have the rib cage that protects some vital organs like the heart and so on. Moving on, we'll be looking at the joint. What is it? A joint is the part of the body where 2 bones meet. Most joints are mobile, allowing the bones to move. Joints consist of the following. We have the cartilage here. As you can see right here, this is the cartilage, or what we call articular cartilage. Now this is a type of tissue that covers the surface of a bone at a joint. Cartilage helps reduce the friction of movement within a joint. Now we have the synovial membrane. This is the synovial membrane right here. This blue part right here is the synovial membrane. Now it is a tissue that lines the joint and seals it into a joint capsule. The synovial membrane secretes a clear sticky fluid called the synovial fluid around the joint to lubricate it. So you can see this is the synovial fluid right here, which helps to lubricate the joints. Now we have the ligaments. Strong ligaments, tough elastic bands of connective tissue surround the joint to give support and limit the joint's movement. Ligaments connect 2 bones together. So you can see this pink part here is the ligament. It helps to hold 2 bones together. Now we talked about the synovial fluid, which is a clear thick fluid secreted by the synovial membrane that helps to lubricate the joint. Now this is an example of a typical movable joint with its parts. Now we are going to be looking at the types of joints. Now we generally have 3 types of joints. We have the movable, slightly movable, and freely movable joints. Now the movable joints, the 2 or more bones are in close contact but no movement can occur. For example, the bones of the skull. The joints of the skull are called sutures. That's an example of the joint of the skull which does not allow movement. Slightly movable. Here 2 or more bones are held together so tightly that they have limited movement, or limited movement is permitted. For example, the vertebrae of the spine. Now we have freely movable or movable joints. Most joints within the human body are this type. Motion is the purpose of the joint. Now under movable joints, we have 6 types of freely movable joints, which include ball and socket joints. The rounded head of one bone sits with the other, such as the hip joint or the shoulder joint, which allows movement in all directions. Now the ball and socket joints allow movement in all directions. The saddle joints, it permits movement back and forth and from side to side, but does not allow rotation, such as the joint at the base of the thumb. Number 3, we have the hinge joint. Now, two bones open and close in one direction only along the plane, like a door, such as the knee and the elbow joint. This is where hinge joint is found, at the knee and elbow. We have the condyloid joint. This permits movement without rotation, such as the jaw or finger joint. Number 5, we have the pivot joint. Now, one bone swivels around the ring formed by another bone, such as the joint between the first and second vertebrae in the neck. So the pivot joint is found in the neck region. And finally, we have the gliding joint or plane joint. Smooth surfaces slip over one another, allowing limited movement, such as the wrist joint. So gliding joint is found in the wrist. Now right here we have the picture of the various types of joints. Now you can see that the ball and socket joint, which allows movement in all directions, is found at the shoulder and at the hip. We have the condyloid joint, which is found between the radius and the carpal bones of the wrist. We have the plane joint, which is found at the ankle region. The saddle joint between the trapezium carpals and the first metacarpal bone. We also have, which is this, we have the hinge joint, which is found at the elbow and at the knees. Then we have the pivot joint, which is found in the neck region. Now we have come to the end of today's lesson. Now let's take a quick look at the summary. The skeleton or skeletal system of an organism is the main framework of that organism. The skeleton or skeletal system is made up of 3 skeletal materials: bone, cartilage, and chitin. The adult human skeleton is made up of 206 bones. Bones are made up of connective tissues reinforced with calcium and specialized bone cells. The axial skeleton is made up of 80 bones, while the appendicular skeleton is made up of 126 bones. A joint is the part of the body where 2 or more bones meet. The human skeleton serves 6 major functions: support, movement, protection, production of blood cells, storage of ions, and endocrine regulation. Now before we go, I want to pause this video and answer the question in this assessment to see how much of the lessons you have imbibed, and I will see you again in the next lesson. Bye bye.